Hi, everybody. I am here to go over one part of the federal judiciary, the federal attorneys and judges. So a lot of times when we think about the judicial branch, we just think about the courts and the judges, but there is another really major part of the federal government, the federal attorneys. So I want you to think about these two guiding questions. What are the three most significant federal attorney titles in the U.S. and what do each of them do? So what are the attorney general jobs and what factors do we need to examine that affect the selection of judges? So let's get started. So first of all, when we talk about federal attorneys and federal judges, the judge part we are pretty familiar with. It's the federal attorneys that seems a little foreign. So I have a link here who is our Attorney General today. This is pretty interesting because just a couple weeks ago it was Jeff Sessions, but he resigned the day after the midterm elections, and the new acting Attorney General, and it says the acting Attorney General because Matthew Whitaker is in the acting position since Jeff Sessions stepped down. He is filling that role, but he has not been approved or gone in front of the Senate yet. And this position is a position that generally needs Senate approval. So this site here is the United States Department of Justice. The federal attorney is housed under the Justice Department. And you can go to this site and learn about the most recent news out of this office. You can learn about the acting Attorney General and about what the job of Attorney General is. So this gives you a quick overview, the history of the Attorney General, and kind of what their job is. Here comes that law that we have talked about before, the Judiciary Act of 1789, and that actually created this office. And it talks about how it's evolved over time and how really this is the attorney that represents the United States in all legal matters. Okay, they are appointed by the president with the Senate consent. They're considered the head of the Justice Department, and you can go click on this link and see what they actually do. So their general role is representing the United States in legal matters, but this tells you the more specific job that they do, and there are different attorney generals for all the states as well. The next position is, is Solicitor General. The Solicitor General is also appointed by the president with the consent of the Senate, and whenever the United States government is one of the parties in a case in front of the Supreme Court, this is the person that is representing the U.S. government in court. They actually also have a really big job, and they decide which cases the federal government will appeal to the Supreme Court and which cases they will not. And they also decide, and this is a really big deal, what the government's position is in these cases. They're sometimes called the 10th Justice of the Supreme Court because they have so much influence there. Then we have the U.S. attorneys. At least one U.S. attorney represents every single district court. Right now we have 94. And what they do is they prosecute federal crime cases in front of all the different district courts and the courts of appeals. So these are all the more local federal courts. So if you break a federal law that's a criminal, if it's a crime, then you're going to go in front of these courts. If you lose in one of those courts and you think it's unfair, then you would appeal and go to the Court of Appeals. Now, remember, most cases, though, whether they're federal cases, state cases, doesn't matter, criminal, civil, a lot of them are settled outside of court, usually through a plea bargain And so most cases don't actually even go in front of the court. The U.S. Attorney represents the U.S. government in all civil cases before these same courts, and they are appointed by the president for 4-year terms. And this is a key patronage position as well. Senatorial courtesy is a major factor in these appointments, and basically this is when the president will go to the senators of a particular state that has a vacancy in their area for the district courts, and they'll ask for recommendations. When we talk about who is selected as a federal judge, there are a couple key factors. Obviously, we just spoke about senatorial courtesy. The Senate Judiciary Committee plays a major role. The Senate itself, as an entire body, is going to affect who gets selected, and the likelihood of if they're going to be confirmed is going to play a major role. The political parties play a major role and impact who will be selected. Diversity. So if a woman resigns from a court position, then you will often see that another woman is appointed in order to ensure that there is diversity on the court. Age is a factor. You actually want a young person, or as young as possible. You'll notice when we look at our current Supreme Court, the most recent judges are young, and that's because you want someone who's going to serve for a very long time. Interest groups like the ABA, the American Bar Association, plays a major role. A paper trail. So all judges leave a paper trail, and this is basically all of their scholarly work, whether from college to their decisions that they've made, if they have dissenting, concurring opinions, majority opinions, anything that they've written that tells their legal reasoning is going to be a big thing that impacts them. And then the number of judges that are needed is going to affect the selection. This is an older chart, but it gives you a pretty good idea of the different appointments, and the characteristics are here, and then the presidents that appointed them. So you can see George W. Bush, for example, 78% of the people that he appointed to federal district and appeals courts were male, and 22% female. Clinton, 67-33. Bush, 81-19. Reagan, 74-21. And then Carter is seen as the shining example of a big shift of adding more diversity. And if you look at all the numbers through ethnicity and through gender, he did a lot to diversify the courts. All right, that's where we're going to stop today. Thanks so much. I hope that helped.